time, we have a few questions regarding the recordings, right? So if you guys want to access the recordings, you can actually do so here. Let me just bring this up. So you can actually do so here. Just go to vantagemarkets.com/webinar, right? Let me just get this out in a moment. Okay, so if you want to access the recordings, just go to Education and Tools, Educational Webinars, and then under this tab, you can actually find a series of webinars you have scheduled on a daily basis, the topics, the speakers, and the time. And after that, over here, right, this is where you can see the recordings of the sessions. Okay, so if you guys want a recording of this, right, please put them under the tab. Okay, we have requests for US 100 Gold as well as DEX, right? Got your request further, so let's take a look at them. Okay, so let's take a look at these 3 setups. Right, so for those of you guys who just joined us, we are doing the Vantage Live analysis for today. So if you guys have any chart requests, please put them under the tab. Okay, so let's start, right? So let's just first start off with the economic calendar. So under economic calendar, what I like to do, right? So usually I alternate between Forex Factory as well as the Vantage economic calendar. So over here, you can see that these are the key events. The high impact events are categorized according to the ones in darker colors. The ones in lighter colors are the ones with lower impact. So yeah, so the upcoming ones that we have would revolve mainly around CAT, right? So CAT jobs data as well as US inflation expectations, right? So this one is closely watched. So these are the main ones for today. So next up, we have our charts, right? So let me just bring up the charts. So let's take a look at dollar index first, right? So I like to start off with dollar index. So we get a gauge of roughly how's the dollar doing, right? So over here, right? So I believe we're on the higher time frame. So this area. So you can see that on the monthly picture first, right? Prices are sitting on a resistance and support level over here, right? So this area got shifted, but this is basically a resistance and support area. You can see here, right? Strong rejection of this level twice, once here, and then another time over here before price broke above it and retested this level as a support. If you put it in line chart, you can see that there are these 2 huge reversal points as well. And then price broke above it, retested this level, and currently it is again sitting on this area. So this is on the monthly picture. If you go down to the weekly time frame, you can see that on the weekly time frame, pretty much the same thing, where prices are pulling into this zone. If you go to the daily time frame, you can see on the daily time frame, this was the last low that we've highlighted, the last range, right? So these areas that we've drawn over here, these are the ranges. So we're waiting for a break above or below the range. So this is the picture on the daily. If we go on to the 4 hours, right? So previously we were calling for a push up here. This was last week, right? So this area here. So essentially we saw that price broke below the range and we identified this area as the last resistance zone, right? So this is the last area. So if price comes into this region, we're still expecting a reversal. But once price breaks above, right? So this is actually the upside confirmation level. So if price breaks above this level, then we can expect a further push up. So that was the area. So you can see that price broke above, came and tapped into the next resistance zone, which is this area here. Right, so this was the area we've highlighted as well. And the reason why we highlighted this area is because, again, just based on support resistance, you can see that this was the last support area before price broke below. So this is one region, right? So for those of you guys who want to do Fibonacci retracement, right? So this is to incorporate the concepts that we have covered in the educational series. So you can see that this is the last push down and we're seeing this pullback. So when we want to take a Fibonacci retracement, we want to identify the high and the low. So using this would be the highest point, which is the starting point. This is the low, which is the ending point. So when you do a Fibonacci retracement of the move from high to low, you can see that the 61.8 retracement and 127, right, is in line with this zone that we've highlighted. So I've emphasized again in many of these Thursday sessions, right? So when you do Fibonacci retracements and extensions, because there are intervals at there are almost levels at every interval. So as much as possible, we try to take it based on this support resistance areas, right, instead of taking this purely in isolation. So you can see that currently where we are right now on dollar index, right, we have this support level here. So this is the support level. Price broke above this level and currently it's revisiting this area. So this for me is the support level, right? Let me just remove this blue markings. So this blue markings are just the ranges that we're trying to show earlier. So this area here, right? So you can see that price came in, right? Actually, it tested support area once, which is here. And then right now it's just kind of hovering around this area. So what we can also do, right, it's to take again, right, now that we've highlighted this gray zone as the support. And the reason why we highlighted this gray zone as a support is because, again, just looking at how price reacted of this region, right? So price reverse below, and then following which you can see this big bullish candle, right, representing a strong breakout. Price pushed higher. Right now it's pulling back into this area. So just graphical level, this is a support level. Next, what we can do next is a Fibonacci retracement, right? This is the push and this is that pullback. So Fibonacci retracement from low to high. And when we do that, right, when we take this move from low to high, you can see here, right, there is a 61.8%, or rather a 50%. In this case, this is a 50%. Okay, so this 50% area, let me just remove this because it's already broken. Right, so the 50% retracement here, you can see lines up with this gray zone. Okay, this one might not be very obvious. I might just want to change this slightly. You can see this area here. Okay, so this is the support level. So this is the region. I think that if price comes into this area, we could see another push up to test this resistance again, right? Once it breaks above this area, the next resistance target we have would be this area here. You can see that again, right? If I were to just draw a horizontal line across, it divides this chart very neatly. You can see how price tested as both a support and resistance here. Okay, and again, if you switch it to line chart, you see pretty much the same things. Okay, so this is the view on dollar index. Right now, let's take a look at US 100. So again, right, starting from the higher time frame first. So let's go to the weekly, right? So on the weekly time frame, you can see this area, right? So just based on support resistance level, we have a support level over here. Again, if I were to just draw a horizontal line across, you can see this region over here, and also this resistance area. Right, so right now we're in between these 2 points. And again, right, why would we highlight this as a support? You can see over here, right, price came in previously. There was this sharp rejection of this area before price pushed higher. Even if I were to put it in line chart, you can see, right, just draw a horizontal line across. You can see how nicely price divides this chart as both a support and resistance. So this is the picture on the weekly time frame. If you go down to the daily time frame, you can see again, right, we've highlighted the support region over here. And then there is a resistance on the smaller time frame, which I'll explain a bit further, right, when we go down to the smaller picture. So right now where we are here, right, what we did with this move on the daily, it's that, or even on the 4 hours, if you go down to 4 hours, you can see this clearer. So this is basically the support level. We took a Fibonacci retracement of this move. So you can see that this is the impulsive move and we're seeing this correction here. So again, for Fibonacci retracement to find support, right, we want to identify the lowest point as the starting point and the highest point as the ending point. So we saw the 61.8 retracement here. And this is the bigger, higher time frame support level. If you go into the 4 hours time frame, you can see that right now price broke structure as well. It broke below this low that we have, right? So right now the most immediate resistance level that we have would be this region here. So you can see that again, right? This is the previous support and resistance area. So if I were to extend the same region across, right, you can see that this area over here, right? So any pullback into this region itself can serve as a resistance. So this is the picture on the 4 hours time frame, right? So if I were to just remove all these markings, right, all these things that we've drawn so far, you can see that where we are currently. Right, so let's say if you've gone to a one hour time frame, so you can see that this area over here, right? So this is the resistance area. So price came in, tapped into this region, and then you can see that it broke and closed below this area. So right now this, on the 1 hour, the 4 hours, you can see that this is a resistance area. here. Right, so we're expecting more downside into this support area. So right now where prices are, you can see that where it is currently at, it's trading in the middle of nowhere. It's just a slight consolidation. So we'll probably see a lot more activities during the New York session. Okay, so we've marked out the resistance area previously, right? Let me see. So price, this is no longer valid because of how price moved, right? So extension retracement levels that we found earlier were not valid, right? So I believe this is taken on a smaller time frame, right? Previously over here, this support level. You can see the support area here. So price comes into this region, right? As always, you don't want to take an immediate entry. When price comes into this area, there will be a change in structure on the smaller time frame first. So this support level that we found earlier, right? So how do you wait for confirmation? So let's go down, right? Focus on this portion. So when price enters into this gray zone, you can see that if you're on the 15 minutes, right, or even the 5 minutes, right? So entering into this gray zone, you can see that there's still, so this is actually a really good example of how there isn't a reversal on a smaller time frame. So this is the 5 minutes. So we're somewhere here. So at this area, right, when price enters into this region, you can see that there are subsequent lower lows and lower highs being formed, right? And this makes sense because if you're pulling back from a higher time frame down into a support region, right, price has to be trending lower. So you can see here, right, on the 5 minutes, there are subsequent lower lows and lower highs. So if you're to mark out just the lows and mark out the highs, you can see subsequent lower lows and lower highs. If you put it in a line chart, you can see it very clearly as well, right? So basically there are lower lows, lower highs, right? So the confirmation comes when price breaks below the last high. It breaks above this high. So you can see that this is the last high that we have. Even if you put it in line chart, you can see that this is basically the last high. So which means that if price comes into this region, it holds above the gray zone and it continues to break to the upside, then there's confirmation that this gray zone would hold. Okay, so that's how I use the smaller time frame confirmation. So in this case, you can see that this area, right, price just went right through this area, the support region. And then what we have currently right now, if you're on the 4 hours picture, right, you can see that this is the last support and resistance area. So this zone, so this is one zone to watch. If you're on the 1 hour, right, just based on graphical level, this is the area as well. Okay, so this region here. So again, how do we know where the price, right? So if you take a look at the most recent market structure, this is a high, this is a low, price broke below, this is the last high that broke the low, right? So anywhere within this leg itself, right, if price were to pull back, it's still considered bearish for us. So which is why, how would we know where the price is going to go into this zone or if it's going to go higher, right? It could come into this resistance area here as well. So again, right, how would we know that? You can see that if we were to see a pullback into this region, what would first have to take place is that we need to see price pushing into this zone. So that would be in a form of higher lows and higher highs. So if it does respect this resistance area, then the change in structure would first happen on the smaller time frame. So coming into this region, right, there will be a change in structure, which we can see on the 5 minutes. Okay, so these are the two zones for me, right? So once we found these areas, what you can do next, it's again, right, this is the push, this is the pullback. So we want to take the high and low as our Fibonacci retracements. So take a Fibonacci retracement from high to low over here. You open up these levels, right? You can see that the 38.2% would line up with the first resistance area we have and the 78.6, the second area. So these two zones. You can see the 78.6 in line with this gray zone, 38.2 in line with this smaller time frame zone. So the next thing we want to do, identify our Fibonacci extension. So recall in our Thursday session, right, Fibonacci extensions are basically zigzag patterns. Having identified the zigzag pattern, what we want to do next is to identify the 3 turning points. So these are the 3 turning points. And once you have gotten the 3 turning points, you can just use these 3 turning points to project the extension levels. So you can see at these 3 points, right, we have the 78.6 in line with our first resistance and this 1.618 in line with the second one here. Okay, so this is the area, right? So for me, it's still bearish, right? But whether we will be pulling back into this zone, right? This is the most immediate resistance area before we see a further reversal, right? This would be 1. But in order for confirmation, right, it's best that you go down to a smaller time frame. If you're on the 1 hour, you can check either the 15 minutes or 5 minutes just to see if there's a change in structure on your smaller time frame. So once that happens, right, there's a higher probability that this zone is being respected instead of having price just run right through it. Okay, so that helps you to filter out quite a bit of trades. So in this case, right, this is the setup on US 100, right? Let's take a look at gold as well as DAX. So on gold, right, let's take a look at gold first on the higher time frame. So let me just remove all these markings. Right, so let's start from the higher time frame first. So on the higher time frame, you can see that there is this support and resistance area over here. Right, if I were to highlight this graphical zone, you can see this region. Right, and if I were to put it in, draw a horizontal line across, you can see this area here. So if you put it in line chart, you can see this very clearly. Right, so essentially how prices reacted as both a support and resistance area here. Okay, so this is the picture on the weekly time frame. Whether we will be seeing a reversal from here, right? We need to check it from the smaller time frame. So this is currently the picture on the weekly. If you take a look at the daily, you can see that daily right now, right, prices are sitting on the support level. Right, there isn't any clear structure, right? In terms of market structure, you can see it's just a strong push up. And then right now we're just seeing that pullback. So if you're on the daily time frame, currently where we are right now, you can see that based on just supply demand areas, there is this candle, right? So this is the demand. The reason why this is a demand, it's because if you take a look at it on the smaller time frame, let's say on the 3 hours, you can see that this is a clear resistance. This was a previous resistance area here. And then following which you can see that this resistance area was not acknowledged. You can see a flush of buyers, right, represented by this big bullish candle. You can see with very small wicks, so this represents strong buying pressure, pushing price higher, right, and right now it's sitting on the support level again. So if I were to just extend this area, you can see that this is the support level. Okay, so this is the support region on the 4 hours time frame. And where is the resistance area? You can see that this is the resistance area here. Again, if I were to draw a horizontal line across this range, so how price interacted with this area as both a support twice and then eventually breaking this level here. Okay, so this is the region. Again, if you were to put it in line chart, you pretty much see the same thing, cutting the lines across. Okay, so once we found that, right, what we want to do next is to try and find if there are any retracement or extension levels that line up with these gray zones that we found. Okay, so what you can do, right, this is the move, push down, right? So if we do see a pullback from here, this would be the highest point and this is the lowest point. Of course, if price continues to trend lower, right, we will have to adjust the retracement level, the ending point. But for now, right, this is what we have. So we want to take a Fibonacci retracement from high to low. So using the 2 points we've marked out, high to low, you can see that the Fibonacci retracement. So again, we want to open up these levels. So the Fibonacci retracement, right, we have 50%, which is in line with this resistance area, this zone here, right? And then this is for the Fibonacci retracement. For extension levels, we want zigzag patterns, right? So if we want to find resistance using Fibonacci extension for resistance, these are the 2 zigzag patterns that we can use. This is the first one. This is the second one, right? So this is a quick recap from yesterday's session. So with that, you can see that the Fibonacci extension level would be this zone here. Right, so this is 0.1, this is 0.2, this is 0.3. So when you open up this key extension levels, 0.1, 0.2, and 0.3. So when you open up this key zones, you can see that the 100% extension, which I'll put it in blue, it's also in this region, right? So the 100% extension is here, this area, right? So this is the region. Right, so if price pulls back into this area, there's one region to consider. So right now where we are, we're currently sitting on the 4 hours demand, right, demand zone over here. Right, so you can see that again, for more confirmation, you can either use the 30 minutes or 1 hour. Right, so even if I'm on a 1 hour time frame, you can see that what we have over here. So price pushed higher, right? So it forms the last high, where I was trending, building liquidity here. And then what we have after is that this is the low. So we see that pullback. And then following which price it broke below this low. So you can see that broke below this area. Right. So this is the picture on the 1 hour time frame. So again, right, are there any resistance areas on the 1 hour time frame? You can see on the 1 hour, the most recent resistance zones would be this area here. So this is just highlighting the levels. Right? The most recent one would be this area. Again, if you have to put it in close, you can see this region, right? So draw a horizontal line across. So how price tested as a support right now is pulling back into this zone. We saw the first initial rejection, right? So if you go on to the 15 minutes time frame, you can see that right now there isn't any market structure, nothing on the 15 minutes. If you go to the 5 minutes, right, the same thing. There isn't any zigzag pattern coming into this region, which means that any pullback, right, we need price to form a new low and then continue from there, right? If not any pullback itself, this doesn't give us any confirmation. Okay, so right now you can see that it's the high, price pullback, it forms a new high. So this itself, right, anywhere within this leg, price could still continue higher. Okay, so this is the picture on gold. Right, so currently it's testing this resistance area. If there are no confirmation on the 5 minutes time frame, I think we could see price push much higher. Right, this is the next resistance area over here, which is at around 1890.30. Right, so if price breaks above, this would be the next resistance. The 4 hours resistance is slightly higher, which stands at about 1909. Okay, so right now gold is testing the demand area. The gray zones are the higher time frame ones, right? So it's testing the demand region. So if it breaks above this blue zone, which is a smaller time frame resistance, we could see price push much higher to at least 1890. And then let's take a look at DAX. Okay, so again, from the higher time frame first, let's see where we are currently. So on the monthly time frame, you can see that's coming into this resistance area, this zone over here, right? So this is the picture on the monthly. Let me put this in a different color, right? So this resistance area, again, right, if I to put it in close as well, you can see that there's this resistance area here. So right now, this is the picture on the monthly, right? Are we taking any trades off there? No, because it's going to take a while to play out, right? There might be a while to play out. And you can see this region, right? There's also this head and shoulders. So price broke above it, it forms the head and then the neckline. And then following which we see a break of the neckline. So you can see a break of the neckline here. Right, so this area, or even if you to put it in close, you can see pretty much the same thing as well. Okay, so price broke the neckline, continued much lower. So you can see that following the break of the neckline, right, price came in, we tested this neckline, which is basically the zone, right? The support, if you're into resistance and support areas, right, then there is this support and resistance area here. Basically this zone, right? So we tested this neckline here. You can see that there is a strong break and close below this area. And then price retested as a resistance, continued much lower, right? So right now it's pulling back into this gray zone, which is the resistance area on the higher time frame. So let me just remove all this, right? So you have the resistance area here. So again, on the daily, you can see right now on the daily where we are, right? Price formed a high pullback, and right now it's just consolidating with this area. So nothing much on the daily, right? See this sideways movement. If you're on the 4 hours, so on the 4 hours picture, what we have here, you can see that this is the last low. Price broke the high, right? So on the 4 hours, there is, in terms of structure, price formed a new low and price broke above it. So what this means is that on the 4 hours, right, this region alone, this area here, so this is the support area. You can see that this is the last push up. This is also where price saw a break above structure. So over here, right, as long as price holds above this area, for me, this is still the demand region. So if you take a look at support resistance levels, right, where we are currently here, this would be a support area. Right, if I were to expand this, right, and why is this a support region? Because of how price reacted previously. You see price pushed up and then following which, right, it hesitated and broke above. If you switch it to line chart, you see pretty much the same thing as well. Resistance, price broke above and then retested this region as a support. Right, so this would be the demand area. This area here. So once you found this, right, what we want to do next, Fibonacci retracement of this move. So taking the low point and the highest point, what you can do, right, is to take a Fibonacci retracement of this move from low to high. Same thing, right? As always, we want to open up the key levels. You can see the 78.6 is the one that line up with this blue zone here. Right, so that's one. And then another thing that we can check, right, would be, you can see the zigzag pattern, right? So this is the zigzag pattern and these are the 3 points. So having found the zigzag pattern, you want to identify the 3 points, right? So Fibonacci extension of this move. So 0.1, 0.2, and 0.3. Right, so there's the 100% extension here, right? So there's some Fibonacci confluence lining up here. So this would be the support area. So when price enters into this zone, right, you can go into the 15 minutes time frame. So right now it's still forming the structure. So if it forms a structure, if it breaks below, right, then this forms a new high. So what you're trying to check coming into this zone is to ensure that if price respects this area as the demand, what we have to check from here, right? So price enters into this area as the demand area. We want to see that coming into this region, there is lower lows and lower highs, and following which there is a break of the last high. Okay, so right now there isn't a clear structure yet in this region. Right? So what you want to see is something like that. You can see that you can draw out the structure very clearly. Right, so there is a high price broke above it, right? So this is an example of what you want to see here. Currently, where we are right now, you can see that you can't really pinpoint any significant reversal high from here. Right, so right now, I believe that this is what we need to wait for. Okay, so I have a few questions, right? I make several mistakes in understanding rejection from non-major resistance or support in smaller time frame. When you say watch out for 5 minutes reaction, are there other confluences to confirm it rather than just jumping in too early and get the wrong trades? Right, so in general, right, I try and look for structure. So what I mean by this is that in this area, right, you can consider this as a high, right? This can be a high, but what I try to look for is that you can see that coming into strong reversal areas, right? So let's say take a look at this example, this zone here. Right, so coming into this region, you can see that price again, right? So it formed a lower low and lower high on a 5 minutes. So this is currently, 15 minutes, right? So 15 minutes, but this works the same for all time frames. So lower low and lower high, right? So what you want to look for first is that you want to look for the last, so in a downtrend, you want to look for the last high that actually broke below this low. The reason for that is because in a downtrend, right, if I were to just draw a downtrend, you can see that usually most of the time, right, when price, so this high took out the previous structure, this high itself should not be violated. So you can see that the high itself should hold, right, before, and any pullback into this, the last leg itself, any pullback into the resistance area should provide us opportunities to take shots from. So what you want to wait for, it's first a break of this high, because what it shows you is a possible change in market structure. So in this case, you can see that this is the last high. Right, so if we were to wait for any reversal, if it's on a higher time frames demand, what you want to see is that this would be your last high. So you draw a horizontal line across it, which means that only when price breaks and close above this region, right, then there's confirmation for a higher term trade. The reason why I would not consider this high, it's because you can see that this high, right, they form an equal low. So if you talk about order flow, right, so in a bearish market structure, right, the high is supposed to break the low, right, because prices are supposed to continue in a downtrend. So you can see that this high, if the high broke below the low, right, then this high for me would be considered the confirmation. But in this case, because this is the last high that actually took out the structure, which is why this would be the high, right? So if price breaks above this area, then there's confirmation for more upside. If not, right, there isn't any, right? Because this high itself did not break any low. So this high itself would be a potential target. If you're taking long positions, you want to target highs like this. So again, how would we know whether price is going to continue much higher, right? So again, this is the fractal nature of market. So what I mean by this is that if price comes into a demand area, let's say into demand area over here, right? So on the higher time frame structure, you have the high pushing price into a demand zone. So if the high is strong, right, it will break price, it will break below, right? But if prices start respecting the demand zone, and on your, let's say your 5 minutes or 1 minute time frame, you can see that demand areas are starting to hold, then this is when you will want to target this as the take profit, right? So if you're holding on to long positions, you want to target this high as the take profit target. So which is why, right, you can see that when price reaches this area, there's an immediate rejection of here. Okay, so, but this itself would not be a confirmation simply because the high didn't break the previous low. Okay, so this is the smaller time frame confirmation that I was talking about. So in this example as well, right, so what we want to wait for ideally is that we want to wait for a clear high to be formed. And if the high breaks above, right, then that would be the confirmation. Another way would be to wait for, so this is structure, right? So right now there isn't any structure. You can see that coming down over here is just rather smooth. So in this case, right, it's best to wait for the 15 minutes, right? So you can see right now where it is. If I were to just draw just the 15 minutes area, you can see this zone. Okay, so again, support and resistance area, you can see them all around across the different time frames. You can see this area, even if I were to switch it and close, right? Notice how the zones divide this chart neatly across. So if there is a high that's being formed, which push price deeper into the support region, right? This is the last high. Then again, you can do the same reasoning. If price push into this area, wait into this demand, right? But it fails to break this low, right? So if it fails to break and close below this low, what this suggests is that if demand starts holding over here, right, this high would be a potential target to take the long position off. Okay, so that is the concept. So I hope that answers your question, right? So, okay, I have another question, right? Let's say this gold current movement. So maybe stick with the much higher time frame, D1H for 1900 resistance, and possibly market can aim higher for 1900 for taking stop loss sellers first before big impulsive move down, right? Okay, let's take a look at H4 and daily. Okay, so let's take a look at this too, right? So we'll just use these two time frames. So you can see that on the daily, right, currently it's in a resistance area, right? So if you take a look at supply demand zones right now on the daily, right, what we have over here, you can see that this, so let me just hide all these drawings. Okay, so right now on the daily, right, we have this area, which is the resistance. Oops. Oh, okay, so you can see that there's this area. So on the daily, there's this consolidation and then a clear break above this. So this is the daily support area, right? But there's still some movement down before we see that, right? So nothing much on the daily with respect to what we are seeing over here. Right? You can see that prices tested a wick above this area, but it's still holding within the last range. So if you take a look at the high and lows, right, you can see that right now this is the previous high, this candle itself, right? So notice this candle. So prices are still holding within the high and low of the previous candle. So you can see this range, right? So there isn't anything much on the daily minus, except for the fact that it broke or swept above this high. You can see this high, right? So, but if you're on the 4 hours time frame, you can see that currently on the 4 hours, right, we're seeing much clearer structure, right? So on the 4 hours when price breaks above, you can see that this is first, right, the break above the previous structure. So using the same idea, right? So if prices were to continue in the uptrend, it should pull back and continue its higher lows and higher highs. So if you're on the 4 hours time frame, you can see that this is the demand area, right? We've highlighted this demand area previously, and the reason for that is because of how price interacted with this zone, right? So if you draw a horizontal line across, you can see that this area here. So price interacted very nicely with this zone. We did a Fibonacci retracement of this move as well and found two confluence levels there. So when price taps into this region, right? So it's the same reasoning. So if price comes into this area, and let's say on your 15 minutes or 1 hour time frame, you can see that there is a change in structure, right? So there's a break of the last high that took out the low, and price continue, right? What this shows us is that this is the 4 hours high, right? So if there is a high that pushes price into a demand, right, and you can see that demand is starting to hold control here, what this shows is that this high itself could be a potential target because it fails to break the low. So if the high fails to take out the low, right, and this is how we can take a look at it, right, or how we can interpret this is that if demand areas start holding. So if price comes into a higher time frame demand, and you can see that demand areas start forming, right, so there is a change in structure, then what this suggests is that this H4 high, right, can be a potential target. So if price comes into this area, demand is starting to hold, right, you can target this as the final take profit, right, or your higher time frame take profit, managing the trades along the way. Okay, so on your question, right, 1900 resistance. So 1900 resist. Oh, sorry, you're talking about gold. Let's take a look at gold. 1900 resistance. Okay, so go on the daily and 4 hours, right? So this is the daily time frame, right? That's the support area over here. On your 4 hours time frame, you can see that this is the resistance, which is this area here. Okay, so market can aim for higher above 1900 for taking stop loss sellers first before big impulsive move down, right? So right now on the daily time frame, you can see that it's sitting on the demand area, right? If you're on the 4 hours picture over here, you can see that this is actually the whole move, right? So price broke below, right? So this is the last high. You can see that this is the last high that we have. Right, so this is the last high, and price broke below this area. So if price pushes higher into this 1900 area over here, right? So if price pushes higher into this region over here, what it also suggests is that it broke this high, right? So if we do see a push down again, right, I wouldn't advise taking immediate positions over here, right? So if we see a strong movement up, right, what we will see with this big movement up to push into this resistance area, this zone, is that you'll see that there'll be higher highs and higher lows forming. So how do we know when the big move is going to happen? It's when there is the change in market structure on your, let's say if you're on the 4 hours, right, then you might want to look out for the 15 minutes change in market structure, right? So if there's a deep pullback into this zone, right, for this zone to be respected, the change in market structure will first happen on your smaller time frame. Okay. So this is how it's like, right? So you can see using the same example, right? If I'm on the 4 hours time frame, you can see this area. So this is currently the high, on the 4 hours. So if price breaks above this high, right, we could see a deeper push into this area. And then this itself is bullish, right, because price broke above the last high. So again, if you want to play the drop over here, you want to consider taking this confirmation only after there is a change in market structure on your, let's say, 15 minutes. Okay, so I hope that's clear, right? I think, yeah, so if you guys have any other questions, right, please feel free to put them under the questions chat. Just lift this tab here. And then at the same time, right, so I ran through this already, right? So yeah, so at the same time, if you guys want to check out the schedule, right, you can go to vantagemarkets.com/webinars. If you have any questions on the funding account, right, please feel free to email support@vantagemarkets.com. Okay, so yeah, so if you guys have any questions as well, right, please feel free to put them under the tab. Okay. Yeah, so I think that's all that we have for today, right? I don't see any more questions coming in. So yeah, I hope that all the questions, we've answered all of your questions, right? So I think with that, we've come to the end of this session, right? So thanks everyone for staying with us till the end as always, right? Have a great day, have a great weekend, right? And we'll catch you guys again next week.